The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to Ask the Expert about resource management. I'm happy to see you all joining our today's session. I hope that it's going to be useful to you and you're going to get some great ideas from it that will be helpful to you and your team as well. So without further ado, let's start. And before we begin, I just wanted to mention that in the control panel for the webinar, you can find a couple of handouts, the documents that are basically downloadable. So make sure to get them before we wrap up today's session. One of the documents is titled How to Get a WRIKE. And closer to the end of the session, I'm going to talk about it and how it can be useful for your team. As well as there is the WRIKE Work Hacks document that contains quite some useful tips and tricks for you as well. So again, make sure to get those documents before we end today's session. And also, I hope that you can hear me loud and clear, that you can see the image on your screen. In case if you do not hesitate to use the question box and let me know that something is going wrong. I will make sure that everything works fine for you as well. And as our today's session is Ask the Expert, so I really want to encourage you to ask any of the questions that you might have during the session or after the session. I will also let you have a few minutes to maybe prepare some questions or write me any questions that came up during the session, and I will be happy to discuss those to provide the right answers to you. All right, well, let's begin then. My name is Eli. I'm the Customer Success Manager here at WRIKE. I've been working with WRIKE support team for over a year before and pretty much dealing with all of the different questions or problems and issues that the users have with WRIKE. And now as I have moved to my new role as a Customer Success Manager, I'm doing my best to make sure that every single one of our users uses WRIKE in the most effective and efficient manner. And so what our today's session is going to be about. Basically, we're going to look at how you can maintain your own and your team's workload in WRIKE and what the best suitable view for that in WRIKE is. Then we'll take a look at how you can change the amount of time a task requires and how you can view and reallocate resources. Before we actually go into the demo, I just wanted to ask you one simple question. What are your main resource management pain points? And right now on your screen, you're going to see the poll. So please go ahead and select the one option that fits better for your own situation. So what is it? What is it that you feel is probably the biggest challenge you have around maintaining your tasks and work as a whole? All right. Okay. Thank you everyone for voting. It looks like the majority has got the most trouble with the fact that the availability of each team member is unclear at some given point. Well, and we have another contender, which is how much time a particular task will take to complete. So thank you very much for your answers. I hope that today's session, again, is going to be helpful in that sense and will provide you with the different ways and different ideas about how you can actually make it more visible and how you can use WRIKE to manage your resources properly. But before we actually go into the demo, and before I show you the workload view and the different ways to manage effort allocation, let's take a look at the essential framework of WRIKE. And if you have already spent some time with WRIKE, you must have seen all of those three items you can see on your screen right now. And you might be having questions about when should you use each of those and what the difference is. So let's start with the folder. The folder is your main container, your main structural and organizing unit, which basically allows you to categorize your work. And you can think of it as of something similar to the folders on your computer. So the way that you put different files of yours into different folders, depending on what category they fall into, you can do it pretty much the same way in WRIKE, putting your projects and tasks into different folders depending on what category they fall into. And as an example, you can think of the folders as specific folders for departments or for the teams where all of those different jobs will go into. Now the project. Well, the project is another type of a folder, but compared to a regular folder, projects do have an extra set of attributes, which are the start and finish dates, the owner or multiple owners, and a status. So basically a project in WRIKE represents your real life project. And whenever you have a lot of different tasks that are related to one big goal, one big real life goal, make sure to put them all into one project in WRIKE so that it represents this whole big job in WRIKE as well. And finally, the task. Task is the smallest actionable unit in WRIKE where the majority of the work is actually going to be happening. And the task allows you to keep a track of all of the changes that happen to a task, basically, with the revision history in the description box, which allows you to see what has been changed around in the description, as well as you can see what's been changed about the task in the update history, and that is basically the comments area. As well as you can keep track of all of the conversation that's been going on between the involved members of your account with the comments history as well. Just from a glance, by looking at a task, you can tell how it's progressing because each task has got a status. And by looking at a status, you can know what stage the task is currently on. And of course, you can always know who's responsible for a task because each task has got an assignee. It is also possible to assign a task to multiple users, of course, but we usually strongly recommend against going with that practice just in order to avoid the confusion and possible conflicts about who should be actually doing a job, as whenever you have multiple assignees, it becomes a bit more troublesome to understand who actually does the work. And keep in mind that the rule of thumb here is to keep one task related to one action. So one task should represent one action. A task should be completable. So do not go too complicated with filling in the description, for example. Do not put in too many details into one single task. That would make it pretty much uncompletable. It's always better to break down the work into smaller chunks. So you can create several tasks. Each of them would be covering a specific step of the work that has to be done, rather than you would have everything related to a job in one single task with a lot of different assignees, and that would make it so much harder to understand what should be done and who should be doing what, right? Okay, well, let's now take a look at the account and let's see what the views are that you can use for managing your resources. So this is my workspace. Probably it looks quite similar to what you see on your screen whenever you sign into WRIKE. Of course, the set of the different folders, the structure itself can be quite different for you, but the idea is pretty much the same. And now let's take a look at the workload view, which basically is going to be one of your best and most used resources whenever you need to manage the workforce that you have available. So for example, let's say that I'm working as I'm a part of our marketing team within my company, and I actually have to manage this team and see how loaded each of my teammates are. And as a part of our outreach, we're doing the webinars. So I'm going to take a look at this folder first. My webinar folder does have a set of subfolders within it for every single month, representing basically each month when I had a webinar or when I'm going to have a webinar in the future. And if I expand it further, you can see that I have all of the actual projects that I'm working on. For example, for June or for July, I have also another set of projects that are falling into July. And so I'm going to, what I want to see is my October folder, which is in the future. And I want to kind of plan ahead what the availability is and how loaded is each of my teammates. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the workload view. It's available right here. By default, my folder shows me the list view of all of the tasks that live within sub-projects here. But if I switch to the workload view, here is what I'm going to see. As you can see, I have the list of the users who actually have access to this particular folder, and the bars right here, they show me the tasks that are currently assigned. So as you can see, I'm the only person right now who is assigned on those tasks, and I have 4 of those tasks assigned to me. First is brainstorming for ideas, writing a script, then I'll need to prepare slides, and hosting a webinar. And all of those tasks live in this same project. And if I go into the list view for this particular project, I will again see that all of those tasks are assigned to myself. But what if I want to manipulate those tasks slightly? And what if I think that I'm not going to actually write a script myself? I want someone else in my team to take that job on them. Then I can just take this task and drag it onto a different user. And now with that, actually, I'm only having 3 tasks left for myself, while the writing a script task is reassigned to Bill now. And if we go back into the list view, we're going to see that this task about writing a script is actually assigned to Bill rather than myself. And it's very easy to manipulate all of those tasks. Also, if I want someone else to host a webinar, I don't want to host it myself, I can again just drag the task onto a different user. What if you have plenty of different tasks that are not assigned to anyone yet? So let's say you're just in the planning mode for the moment and you don't actually have the solid plans whom you want to do the job. And I'm going to just create a new task right here, which I'm not going to or better, let's take the existing task, which is host a webinar, and just unassign it from Peter. So whenever you have an unassigned task in a folder or project that you're looking at in the workload view, here's what you're going to see. So I will switch to the workload. And right now, my host a webinar task that I have just unassigned from Peter, it appears in the unassigned block here. So all of the tasks that are actually unassigned, they're going to show up right here in the unassigned section of the workload. So you can instantly see what has been taken, what has already got an assignee on it, and which tasks do you actually have to assign. And again, from the unassigned section, you can just grab a task and assign it to a specific person whom you want to do the job. And of course, quite similar to the timeline view, you can actually manipulate the schedules of the tasks here as well. So if I want to brainstorm for ideas on the 3rd of October rather than on the 2nd, I can move this task. And then as I have the dependency set up between those tasks, you can see that all of the following tasks have been moved. So, but this might, okay, I've got a question. All right, can you see the question from Katie? Thank you for the question, by the way. Can you see the workload view for an individual or team that is inclusive of all tasks they're assigned to? For example, not just for one project, but for any project they're working on. Well, there is a way to do that. For example, if you want to see any task, like if you want to see every single task, you can go to the top level folder. Or for instance, you can just click the name of your account that appears on the top of the structure. And basically that is going to show you the tasks from across the account, regardless of where those tasks live, in which project or folder. And as you can see, I have quite a plenty of different tasks right now. And I have all of my teammates who actually do some kind of work. And you can see that there are a lot more of them than in just my standalone webinar project that I've been looking on before. Also, right here in the workload view, you can kind of narrow down into what you want to see. So for instance, if you want to see the tasks that are only assigned to yourself, you can use the filters that are above the workload view. So if you click this button that by default shows to all, you can select only those assignees whose tasks you want to see. So I can select myself and then only those tasks that are assigned to myself are going to be shown. And vice versa, if I select someone else like Bill, I'm going to see only the tasks that are actually assigned to Bill. Now, if I can also use a different filter to show all of the active tasks. Like for instance, if I take this task, brainstorming for ideas, and make it completed, which in my case is a delivered status that I have created, and then I changed my filter property for the status to show me all active tasks. Okay, let's refresh it. Okay, now that I have all active filter enabled, I actually have my task that was completed disappear from the workload view. It works pretty much the same way like it does in list view or in the timeline view, so that you can kind of choose what you want to see, apply all of those filters. Again, with the filtering button that looks like a funnel, you can apply more filters if you would like to by different criteria that are available also in the advanced filters section. So you can choose, for example, to see only tasks that have been created by a specific user if you would like to. And also right here in the workload view, there are 3 more checkboxes that you can see. So there is highlight overdue, which is going to show the tasks that are currently late. And let's take a look at another project of mine that definitely does have some overdue tasks in it. Okay, I'm looking at the September now, but we want to return. Okay, I've got another question. Thank you, Samantha, for the question. Is there a way to see all projects assigned to each person? The workload view basically shows you the tasks. It does not show you the projects. So if you want to see all of the projects assigned to a specific person, again, what you are going to need to do for that is to go to the very topmost level of the account so that you are shown basically the tasks from everywhere in the account, regardless of which folder or project they live in. And you can see that the tasks, like for example, if I want to see all of the tasks that are assigned to Anne, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the name of the account that's going to show me all of the tasks from everywhere. And then I'm going to filter my workload by Anne as an assignee. And by doing that, I'm actually going to see all of the tasks that are assigned to Anne. So now I'm seeing only those tasks that have been assigned to Anne. And if I want to highlight the overdue tasks, again, I just need to check the box. Then all of the tasks that are overdue are going to appear in red rather than in a status color they have. If I want to show the full user workload, including tasks from other projects and folders, like probably what you've asked. So for instance, if I'm looking at a specific project, and right now Anne does not have any tasks assigned to her in this very project, but I can make sure that I see all of her workload from everywhere else by just going into this project, checking the box for show full workload, and then all of the tasks that Anne has got on her plate in other projects and folders, they're going to show up like this. Caitlin, thank you for the question. What does the color coding mean for the task? Basically, the colors that you can see on the workload, they represent the different custom statuses that you have created. And the custom statuses are available to be edited by admins. So basically, whenever you look at a task, it appears in a color of a status that it has been given. So let's take a look at this task, video production pending approval write script. So this task belonging to Anne is in the active status, which is blue, basically. But if I change this task to something different, like if I select a different status from marketing creative workflow and make it reviewed, changes required, now this task that I was looking at, it is actually, you can see that it changed into a purple color because the status that I've given to a task has got a purple color. Actually, we covered the functionality of custom workflows and custom statuses in a different Ask the Expert session. So I'm going to talk about this closer to the end of the session which are the other Ask the Expert sessions you can attend and learn more about those features. But yeah, again, this color coding means what status basically the task is currently in. So you can see all of those different colors, and each color basically represents a status and shows you can basically tell from a glance in what status a task currently is by just judging from the color. All right, I hope that answers the question. Okay, so if we, as I have said, you can go into a particular project, and if you want to see the full workload, including the tasks that are not in this particular project, you can check this box to show full workload, and then all of the other tasks from other locations are going to be shown right here, allowing you to plan better. And also there is a show backlog button. You might notice that the workload looks quite similar to timeline view. So it shows the tasks according to their schedules, but it's pretty likely that you might have some tasks that are not scheduled. And let's create just one task that is not scheduled at the moment. I'm going to name it into something like test. So this task that I have, I'm going to assign it to myself for now. And if I go back into the workload view and show backlog tasks by checking this box right here, I'm going to see my task that is, oops, where is it? Okay, just a moment. Okay, there it is. There is this task showing up in the beginning of the line itself. So you can see that I have my assigned and scheduled tasks right here. They're shown on the white backdrop, while the task that I have assigned to myself, but that is not scheduled yet, it is shown on this gray backdrop. And I can just grab this task from here. I can take it and schedule it right away. But remember that to see this task, you actually need to have it assigned to at least someone who is visible on the workload view. Now let's move on to another feature in WRIKE that is kind of more advanced and allows you to plan your workload even better, which is effort allocation. So effort allocation, okay, I've got another question. Thank you, Catherine. How can you plan tasks that are not being worked on 8 hours a day, which seems to be the default setting for each task? Exactly what I was just planning to talk about. And you're absolutely right. By default, whenever you create a task, for example, if a task is 1 day long, so you schedule it for just 1 day, it's going to get an 8-hour duration. So if you want to make it different, if you know that the task is actually going to take no longer than 1 hour and you don't want it to take the whole day away from the assignee, here's what you can do. In WRIKE, there is, if you have not heard yet, there is such a section that is called WRIKE Labs, where we put all of the experimental features and maybe some of those features that are not available publicly, but you can enable them for your own account. And the address for that is wrike.com/labs. Very easy to remember. So when you're in the labs, you will need to scroll down to about to the bottom of the page until you see the task-based resource allocation. So what it does is the following. I'm going to check the box to enable, and I'm going to refresh my page. With that feature enabled, what I can now do is I can actually specify how much time or how much percentage of the day each particular task is going to take me. And as you can see, I have been on the workload view, and right now the tasks show me 8 hours, and it's exactly what Catherine said, that by default each task gets an 8-hour duration. But now with the effort allocation enabled, I can actually change this procedure, change this duration of those tasks. And how to do that? Well, you can switch to the table view. Enabling effort allocation also adds 2 custom columns into your account, which are related exactly to the effort allocation. And these are, if you click the Add column in the table view, are shown right here in the beta section, allocated hours and allocation. I'm going to enable all of them for now, just to show how it works. And what the difference is that allocated hours is exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to enter the number of hours the task is going to take. And for example, for brainstorming for ideas is going to take me 4 hours, let's say. Allocation, the neighboring column, it allows you to enter the effort that the task is going to take in percentage. So it might not be that convenient. Hours is, of course, a lot more convenient than allocation in percentage, but in some cases, it might be applicable as well. So I'm going to go with the allocated hours, as it seems like the most common scenario that you are going to use. And I'm going to allocate some of the hours to all of the tasks that I'm working on. So I have already said that brainstorming for ideas is going to take me 4 hours. Now preparing slides is going to take me another 3 hours. And my final task, that is test, is going to take me another 2 hours. So it looks like I've got the 9 hours total allocation. And now let's look at the workload view. As I have all of those tasks scheduled for the different dates, I'm actually going to change the filters so that it shows only those tasks that are assigned to myself. So I've got 2 hours here. I've got 3 hours for this task. I'm going to open the brainstorming task and change it back to the active status so that it shows up with the allocated time as well. And so now I can see how much time exactly all of those tasks take me. Now, what if I want to manipulate those tasks? And what if I want to do them all in one day? So I have 2 of the tasks now scheduled for one day, and I have my total duration, my total allocated hours at 7 hours. Now, what if I want to move my 3rd task into the same day and work on all of those 3 hours at the same time? Okay, let's switch to the list view and back to the workload. So now that I have all of those 3 tasks at one same day, I actually have the total allocation at 9 hours. And the whole day is now shown on the pink backdrop, actually giving you a sign that your assignee is overloaded. With the standard working day of 8 hours, 9 hours is slightly over that. So by just taking a glance at the workload view, you can tell if someone is overloaded with the tasks you've given them. So you can take action. You can actually go ahead and either move one of the tasks into a different date, for instance, so that the total allocation for each day is less. Or you can just go ahead and if you want all of those tasks done on the same day, you can reassign it to someone else rather than having one of your assignees extremely busy and loaded. Question from Caddy. How do you set someone's standard working day? For example, change daily allocation to 9 hours. Well, the answer to that is I'm afraid that for now, we do not have any way to change the allocation to something different from 8 hours. So 8 hours is kind of set and hard-coded, so there is no way to change the daily allocation to 9 hours, I'm afraid. And another question from Catherine. How do you proceed when you have 2 assignees to one task who are not supposed to work on it with the same amount of daily hours? Is the only option to create a parent task with 1 subtask per assignee? Yes, Catherine, actually, it's a great solution to that. If you have one task that kind of that joins the effort of 2 different people, but you don't want those 2 different people working the same amount of time on this task, it is the most logical way to go is to create a specific subtask for each of the assignees that have to work on this task. And then with those subtasks in hand, you can actually give the different effort allocations to each of the subtasks. All right? Thank you for the questions, by the way, and keep them coming if you have any more questions. And again, like for instance, going back to the different situation. Now that I have everything in place, I have set everything right. I have 7 hours for one day, I have 2 hours for another day, and everything seems fine. As we set the allocation for a specific task, it means that if we change the duration of a task to something different, it's going, let's take a look at this task. It has got a 2 hours effort allocation. It means that for each day that the task for which the task has duration. So for example, if we expand it by another day, it means that for each day the task is effective, 2 hours of allocation are going to work. And again, if I'm taking a different task and expand it by another day, as this task's allocation has been 3 hours, now I have got 7 hours for 3rd of October with the brainstorming and preparing slides tasks. And for October the 4th, I've got 5 hours of allocation because my task has got 2 hours allocation and preparing slides has got a 3 hours allocation. And finally, for the 5th of October, where I have only task assigned to myself, I have only 2 hours allocated. And I know that I'm pretty free for other 6 hours and I can take something on me as well. All right, well, that really wraps up the demo part of today's session. I hope that it gave you some ideas to think about. And there are a few more things that I wanted to talk about during today's session. And I see another question coming in. Another question from Katie. Can you create a report that shows how accurate your task estimates were? For example, if I put 7 hours at a task estimate, and then it only took 4. So, well, for that, you can actually combine the time. If you track time on the tasks, like let's take a look at this task of mine that is tasked. As you can see, I now have the 2 fields showing up in the task details as well, the ones that I have enabled in the table view, the allocated hours and the allocation. And to just compare what the allocated hours were and what the actual hours are, you can use the time tracking feature, which is available right here. And for instance, whenever you start working on a task, you can click the plus button. It starts the timer for this task. Whenever you're finished, you can just click a pause button and it will suggest you to add the entry with the time that has been clocked on this task. Or if you forgot to click the play button, that's not a problem. You can click this button right here and add the time entry manually. And now, let's say that I've actually worked for 4 hours on this task rather than 2 hours that have been allocated to it. Now I've got 4 hours clocked into this task, and how can I actually see side by side the comparison of what has been allocated and what I have actually clocked on it? Well, for that, you can go back to table view, and I'm going to hide this column for now with the allocation. And there is another column that you can enable in the table view, which is time spent. And it's going to show all of the hours that have been clocked on a task. So for now, as you can see, it shows me that I have allocated 2 hours to my task. However, I have got 4 hours total that I have clocked on this task and recorded into it. All right, I suppose that it's a good solution for you to kind of compare what you have allocated to a task versus what you have actually, what time you have actually spent on it. Okay, great. I'm really glad that it helps. All right, and just yeah, sure. Keep the questions coming. If there is something else you might want to ask at the moment, go ahead. I will be happy to answer. And before you come up with something else, let me move on to the next part, which is the how to get WRIKE. And as I have mentioned in the beginning of the session, you can download this version of the document from the handout section. And what is this document for? Well, basically, we've come up with this document for you and your team to get together and discuss those questions you can see in it and find in it, so that you come up with the questions that will help you get started with WRIKE easier. And it's going to be especially useful if you're just on the beginning stages of working with WRIKE. But even if you are already an experienced WRIKE user, it still might be very useful to get the answers for those questions. And those questions will allow you to lay some ground for using WRIKE for maybe any newcomers into the account. So what those questions are? Well, why WRIKE? Of course, it should be clear for everyone who uses WRIKE what their benefit is. Every single teammate should understand what their direct benefit is, and that WRIKE is good not only for the business owners or for the major stakeholders, but it's actually good for everyone who is involved into working with WRIKE. Because, well, on the simplest example, who does love missing a deadline? I suppose that there is no such a person who would answer, yes, I love to miss deadlines, right? So the direct benefit for every single user, for every single teammate, is that they're so less likely to miss a deadline in the future if they use WRIKE, because they have all of the resources on their hand, they have all of the visibility of the tasks that they have to work on, that it makes it pretty much impossible to miss out on something. Now the next question is, what is the expectation for WRIKE usage? Of course, we recommend using WRIKE as frequently as possible, but thinking of it realistically, of course, it's great if you could log into WRIKE at least twice a day. What are those 2 times? Well, the beginning of the day. Whenever you start your day, just check into WRIKE, see what you have to work on during the coming day. And whenever you're closer to the end of the day, again, you can you can sign into WRIKE, check out what's been going on during the day, put in any latest changes, any recent updates into the tasks that you've been working on. Make sure that you change the statuses of all of those tasks into something that is more relevant to the situation. Complete those tasks that should have been completed, or take action and reschedule them if you have not actually completed them on time. Now, how is work initiated? And there is the next question that is closely tied to it. Are users responsible for creating tasks and projects, or is it an admin? So there should be a clear understanding for every single teammate about how the work actually gets into WRIKE, whether it is by sending an email into WRIKE via email integration, or be it by request form, submitting a request form into WRIKE that creates a new project or a task, or be triggering a template whenever you have a new job incoming. So the teammates should have a clear understanding how work gets created in WRIKE, and how can they actually create a new work whenever it's required. And if there is a specific person who should be doing that, who that person is. About creating new tasks and projects, I usually recommend giving your users as much freedom as it is possible, so that the more they know about WRIKE, and the more they know about the actual mechanics, how it works, the better they will know it, and the easier they will pick up the habits of using it. The next one is there a specific naming convention? Well, the thing is that in WRIKE, the whole account structure right here, it's sorted by it's sorted alphanumerically. So, for example, if I want to stick to some specific sorting order within my marketing folder, I can actually use the numbers, the digits or the letters in front of those actual folder names, so that they're sorted to my liking. And again, for your own projects, you can come up with any naming convention that you think is going to be useful for the team, but just make sure that it's comprehensible for every single teammate who has to work with those conventions or abbreviations or with this nomenclature, as well as for any newcomer who joins your account later when your team starts growing. Make sure that it's also easy for them to grasp what this naming convention is for and when should they use it. Where do I go to see my tasks? Well, WRIKE is such a flexible tool that it has got a huge array of different tools for you to use just to stay on top of your tasks, which are basically all collected right here on top of the page: the inbox, the My Work, dashboards, reports, and stream. And all of those tools allow you to see what actually you have to work on, what is going on in the account. And it really boils down to the personal preference about what kind of tool you are going to use. So in this sense, it's very important to let your users know they've got all those tools, and they are absolutely free to use any one of them. And it's really down to freedom of using the one that is more preferable to them, that they like more, that maybe allows them to see more, or, well, the personal preferences here come into play. Another question from Catherine. Is there a way to make certain task information editable by only one or two people? We have the unfortunate case of project members changing the start and end dates by accident, which in our case only should be changed by the project or team manager. Okay, Catherine, if you don't mind, I will return to that question after we quickly go through the remaining questions, and I will show you the way how you can do that. All right? So the two last questions are, where is work done? The where is work done part is basically, it's absolutely clear and logical that the work does not happen in WRIKE, but WRIKE is a place that represents this work. So make it a rule that WRIKE is a single place of truth where every single user involved can go into and see what's going on. So every update, every piece of information that has changed about the work, it should go into WRIKE so that there is no question where to get the latest updates, because all of them are in WRIKE. And finally, run team meetings with WRIKE. It's just one of those creative usages of WRIKE that you can come up with. So you can create a specific folder where you would keep the agendas for the upcoming meetings, for example. That way you can ensure that people come to the meeting prepared with the questions and ready for discussion, rather than a meeting would be a waste of time where it's just one person talking and nobody else paying attention or even having the idea why they are here at all. Okay, that's it about the how to get a WRIKE. And now returning back to the question about how you can make it possible to kind of block out other users from editing the details of a task. Well, that is actually possible by changing the permissions for the whole folder. So now let's take a look at one of my folders. Probably I'll just return to the webinar. And what if, let's say, I want those people who have access to the folder, some of them I want to be able to change the dates, for instance, of a task, while those should have a read-only view of those tasks. It is possible by going into Share menu, and if you go into the Selected option, you're going to see all of the people who have access to this folder. And in my case, there are 6 people who have access to the webinar folder. It's Amanda and Peter, Bill, myself, and Dom. And for instance, I'm a project manager here, and I want to be the only person who can change the dates of a task, who can change the signees of a task, who can change the description of a task. So I want to click this button now, Edit Permissions. And as you can see, some of those users already have a different access level. While 5 of us have full access, but I actually want to be the only one with full access. So I'm going to, okay, as those people have a full access rights to the parent folder, and this is inherited from the topmost level folder. So we're going to look at the topmost level folder, go into Share menu for it. And this, well, my top level folder is shared with 4 people. And again, I want Peter, Bill, and Dom to have quite probably better say a limited view of and limited possibilities of editing for tasks that live within that folder. So again, I'm going to go into Edit Permissions. Dom already has limited access, and I want to give Peter limited access and Bill limited access as well. And now I'm the only user who's got full access to this folder. It means actually that Peter, Dom, and Bill, they cannot change the properties of the tasks that live within this company folder. They are effectively limited to the functionality that is available to collaborators. So whenever you give someone a limited access in the folder, that will basically mean that they can only do what the collaborators can do within that folder. So for tasks, they will only be able to add a comment, they will only be able to add an attachment, and they will be able to change a status. And that's it. They will not be able to change the dates. They will not be able to change the assignees if you do not want that happening. So it's a great way for you to go with. And with that in mind, let's actually go further a bit, and I'll show you where you can get more information about that. So for instance, whenever you have more questions about WRIKE, about something that we might have covered during today's sessions or something we might have not covered, you can click this help button right here in the bottom right corner of the page. It's going to take you to the WRIKE help portal. And for instance, we've just been talking about the folder permissions. So you want to learn more, you want to know more about that, you can just start typing folder permissions into the search box. And you've got the article that tells about exactly that, folder and projects permissions. Clicking it will take you to the article with the perfect detailed explanations and actually a chart of what functionality available to each permission level, like full, editor, and limited, what each of them can and cannot do. And let's say if you have more questions after that, you can open live chat with one of our support agents that are available. If you prefer to have a phone conversation, there is the phone number to be found on top of the page, and you can also send an email by hitting the Submit a Request button. Also on the help portal, what can you find there? There is also the WRIKE training section. Well, as you're watching the Ask the Expert session right now, you are absolutely welcome, and I want to encourage you to sign up to other Ask the Expert sessions that we have available. There are 8 topics to choose from. Each of those topics is bi-weekly. So every second Monday, we have the Determining the Best Work View. Every second, actually, I'm wrong. We have every first Monday, we have Setting Up Your Workspace. Yeah, every second Monday, Determining the Best Work View. So in any case, just check out the dates, check out the times available, and register for those specific topics if it is something interesting. Also, if you're just beginning maybe with your WRIKE account and you do not actually know your ways around it yet, I would strongly recommend signing up for onboarding for either admins or users. So we have them broken down into business and enterprise, as well as there is the professional version of onboarding too. It is not necessary to attend them live, although you can register, but as well you can just click this Watch Now button and you will be taken to the video. And the last resource for you to use is our community, which is another great place for you to go to because community is a place where our users get together, discuss their different best practices, their findings about WRIKE. Maybe you will be able to find your own answers to your questions. The link is very easy to remember. It's just wrike.com/community, or you can also, well, get there from the help portal. Let's go back to help portal, and the community is right here. So what is there to find in the community? Of course, it is best practices, and these are actually shared by other WRIKE users. So in here, you can find posts about the findings and best practices that other WRIKE users came up with and decided to share with the world. So it's definitely a great place to check out, and maybe you will find something relevant to your own use case and that you can apply to your own account. If you're just getting started, and how-to sections are going to be particularly useful, the Goldmine is a place where you can get all of the latest news announcements and posts from the WRIKE team. And whenever you grow more experience with WRIKE and you think that something should work in a different way, or if you have an idea for improvement, it's absolutely welcome here into the product feedback area. So go there, create a new post explaining what your idea for functionality is, or you can also find maybe there is already an existing post about the same exact functionality. So you can just go ahead and find it and vote for it if you think that the proposed functionality is going to be useful. And this is the place where the feedback should go to because our product management team keeps a close eye on this section. And whenever there is something that is really, really important to implement in the future or something that becomes extremely popular with other WRIKE users, it's definitely something that our product management team is going to think about. Okay, well, that's really it for today's session. I will be happy to hear any other questions you might have at this point, if there are any left, and I will be glad to answer them for you. And well, if there are no questions, I hope that this session has been useful to you, that I gave you some new ideas to think about and try implementing in your account. And I hope that you have a great week ahead of you, and I hope to see you on our future Ask the Expert sessions. Thank you all for attending. Have a good day, and bye-bye.